Today, I'm going to be showing you guys how to draft your own men's sleeve sloper. In addition to that, I'm going to be showing you guys how to take that pattern, add seam allowance, and trace it off so you can start adapting it for your future designs right now. Also, below in the description, I have a free pattern link to a free bodice sloper and free sleeve sloper for you guys to download. With all that being said, let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Adet and this is the Rage Network. Before we get started drafting our sleeve sloper, we are going to need some tools and measurements. First, a French curve, measuring tape, and an 18-inch fashion ruler. As far as measurements goes, we're going to need an armhole measurement, sleeve length to wrist, top of sleeve cap to elbow, and an upper bicep circumference. To start, I'm going to be drawing a straight line on the left-hand side of my paper. At the top of this line, I'm going to be making a mark and labeling that point 1. From 1, I'm going to be extending down the length of our sleeve. Extending that line all the way out. That's going to be point 2. From 1, I'm going to be extending out our upper bicep width. I'm going to label that point 3. From point 3, we're just going to extend that line all the way down so we create an even rectangle. With this rectangle, we're going to split it in half. Here I'm just using my measuring tape to get a better split. Marking it in 2 places so it's easier to get a straight line. Just using my ruler to go ahead and draft in a straight line. At the top of that line, I'm going to label that point 4. Next, I'm going to be splitting my halves into fourths. Doing the same thing on the other side. Once again, I'm just using my ruler to draft in a straight line. Okay, once you're done with this step, you're going to be left with a rectangle that's split up into fourths, and that's exactly what you need. Next, moving to the top of our paper, from 1, I'm going to measure down 1/3 of our armhole measurement. I'm going to mark and label that point 5. From 5, I'm going to extend all the way out to our number 3 line. And that's point 6, and this is going to be your bicep line. From 6, I'm just going to fill in points 8 and 7. From 7, I'm going to measure up 1/6 of the armhole plus 5/8 of an inch. From 8, I'm going to be measuring up 1/6 of the armhole. Next, just connecting these lines together. Okay, our next step is to take these halves, or take these fours and divide them into halves, half your little sections. Here I'm just doing it the same thing to the other side. Next, from our point 8 and 6, I'm going to measure down 3/8, and I'm going to go up and measure that line up 3/4. Go to the other side and measure up 5/8, and then come back down and measure down 3/16. Using a French curve, I'm going to come in and draw in our curve. This is the top of the sleeve cap. Making sure to just find a good curve. Next, I'm going to add my single front notch and my double back notch. Your back notches are typically a 1/2 inch apart. Next, heading to the center line, I'm going to add a top notch 3/16 of an inch away from the center line. And that's your 3 notches. Now to find the elbow line, I'm just going to be splitting our sleeve in half below the sleeve cap. And once I find that point, I'm going to measure down 1 inch, and then that line is going to be our elbow line. Here I'm just marking my gray line with the center line. Cool. Next, to trace it off, I'm simply just going to grab another piece of paper and trace it. Making sure to copy all the markings and everything else. Make sure to transfer all of your notches and everything, and your gray line. Another way of tracing is using this tracing wheel, and basically what you're going to do is just put your piece of paper underneath your original draft and then trace out the draft. Just trace on the lines. And once you do that, you're going to be left with these dotted lines that you could see clearly and trace out. Cool. Next, to add seam allowance, I'm going to be adding 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is that line right there. And simply just going around, basically just outlining our pattern. And there you have it, your sleeve sloper that's traced out with seam allowance.